Okay, good morning. Yeah, my name is Kristen Collette-Schmidt. I am the Associate Teaching Professor of Finance and the Associate Dean for Specialized Master's Programs. And welcome to the Mendoza College of Business for this snowy and frigid but beautiful morning. So the University of Notre Dame and the Mendoza College of Business are committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. For Mendoza, these principles are foundational to our imperative to grow the good in business. And for me personally, as a professor and a senior leader in this college, that commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion is also a call to action. I believe I am called to use my work of educating future business leaders to guarantee that diverse voices, experiences, and backgrounds are valued, respected, and nurtured. And it is in this spirit that I am excited today to officially kick off the first annual Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Grow the Good in Business case competition. This competition, yes, that applause warms my heart. Thank you so much. This competition joins the forces of Mendoza specialized master's students and business leaders who are also committed to equity and inclusion in the workplace. We hope to challenge students to solve a business case focused on current DE&I issues while engaging with companies willing to share their real-world challenges and expectations in striving for a more equitable society. Further, through this competition, we strive to provide an educational experience that reflects the broader society, as well as the challenges and expectations of real businesses, so that students are equipped to enter the real world as leaders after graduation. So kudos to all of you, our specialized master's students, for being here today and engaging in this opportunity. By doing so, you are signaling your own commitment to use the business acumen you've developed while here in Mendoza in a thoughtful and meaningful way. And you are doing your part in creating an inclusive environment that promotes mutual advancement. So now I have the pleasure of introducing you to Jessica McManus-Warnell, Associate Teaching Professor in Management and Organization. Professor McManus-Warnell has been a tremendous thought leader for this inaugural event, and she is going to discuss the role of business in DE&I and how it connects to this year's case.
Well, thanks very much to our Associate Dean for her nice introduction of me, but most importantly, for the passion, the vision, the leadership that she has shown in bringing this event to fruition. The challenges and opportunities associated with pursuing more diverse, equitable, and inclusive communities and companies, they're vast. The challenges are themselves diverse. We see in both the scholarly research and in corporate practice that these considerations encompass issues such as pay equity, discrimination, a spirit of inclusion and belonging, representation in leadership, individual biases, and systemic inequities. Our businesses play one of the most critical roles in working toward meaningful progress. Diverse, equitable, and inclusive communities and workplaces flourish. They lift up and are enriched by all of their members. Pursuing equity is good for all of us. We all have a responsibility for pursuing just workplaces and communities, and we all have something to contribute. For this, our inaugural case competition, and in collaboration with the state of Indiana, the case that the students will explore addresses just one aspect related to the much broader topic of DEI. Students will be tasked with examining the disproportionate impact of socioeconomic challenges on communities across Indiana and will propose a business solution to these wealth disparities. We'll hear even more on our case from our partner at the state shortly. We at the Mendoza College of Business recognize that diversity, equity, and inclusion involves meaningful steps toward implementing ideas for change in partnership with stakeholders. To that end, the community-based research the students generate from the competition will be made available to the state of Indiana for their possible use. We recognize the opportunities and challenges in this space are complex and ongoing. As a result, this year's competition is one of many ways we look forward to engaging around these issues through our courses, through our programming in the future. And we invite and welcome ideas from any of our stakeholders. With that, I'll turn it back to Associate Dean Colette Schmidt.
So as Professor McManus-Warnell said, businesses play one of the most critical roles in working toward meaningful progress with respect to diversity, equity, inclusion. So whether it be through providing us with our case this year, or providing us with prize money or thoughtful mentorship to students, we are incredibly fortunate to partner with various corporate sponsors in this case competition. And now it is time to meet those sponsors and hear more about their own diversity and inclusion efforts and the impact of those efforts. So now let me turn the floor over to several of our specialized master's students who themselves have demonstrated leadership this year in making their own programs more inclusive.
Hello, I'm Jacqueline Ahn, and I am from the Masters of Nonprofit Administration program, and I'll be introducing Christina Kaminski, the Managing Director in Audit Practice at KPMG. So KPMG's mission is to turn knowledge and understanding of information, industries, and business trends into value for its firms, its people, and the capital markets by offering professional services. Now let's hear about KMG's efforts in the DE&I space.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. I wish I could be with you in person. The weather had other plans. Thank you, Midwest snow. So we're still digging out here in Chicago. I'm sure you guys are also in South Bend, but happy that I can be with you virtually. My name is Christina Kaminski. As that nice introduction said, I'm a managing director in the audit practice at KPMG. I went to Notre Dame. I graduated with my undergraduate degree in accounting in 2008 and then stayed for the master's program in 2009. I was lucky enough to meet my husband through that program, so it's very near and dear to my heart. And we have 2 young daughters, an almost 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. After Notre Dame, I went to KPMG, and I've been there about 12 years. I work in our real estate practice, so I work with clients, public companies, private companies that work in real estate investment, but I've also been very lucky to work, one, very closely with Notre Dame from a recruiting perspective, and also on many ESG and DEI initiatives. As I was reflecting on the talk that I was going to give this morning, I was thinking back to my time at Notre Dame and the first case competition that I participated in. I was a sophomore, and PwC sponsored a case competition around something related to the economy. I can't remember the exact topic. But I remember feeling a little nervous about undertaking this challenge of a case competition on top of everything else that I had going on. And I was so encouraged by professors and upperclassmen that said that this would be a great experience. And it absolutely was. And as I reflect on my career now and thinking back to what that case competition was, there is really no other experience that sets you up for what it's like to work in the real world. You work on teams of people with different backgrounds and different skills on problems that are complex. There is no one right answer in these case competitions, and that's what makes it so hard, but also so interesting, and why we need diverse viewpoints and different teams thinking about these things, because that's how it works in the real world. DEI is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm a Hispanic female with 2 daughters who I want to see grow and get an education and start a career in an environment that supports them and allows them to be exactly who they are. And it's important at KPMG too. We do work for clients all over the world to help them implement these strategies. So you can actually join KPMG and have a job where you spend every day talking to organizations and helping them craft their diversity, equity, inclusion strategies and think about how to implement them and monitor them. And when I think about growing the good in business, which is such a good tagline, that's what it is, right? Helping the rest of the world work on these topics that are important to us and make sure it's important to them too. But we also think about diversity, equity, inclusion internally. We launched a program in 2020 called Accelerate 2025, which was a targeted exercise to ensure that we had more individuals from underrepresented groups choose KPMG as their employer of choice. And we think about it from 3 different perspectives: getting here, succeeding here, and leading here. So getting here is all about making sure that we're recruiting, talking to high school students, colleges, and bringing people so that they understand what KPMG is, why this is an important topic to us, and hoping that they choose KPMG as an employer. Succeeding here is making sure that you can bring your true self to work and that you are supported in having a career here. And leading here is all around efforts to ensure that our leadership reflects the composition of our people. So this is such a tremendous, tremendous concept. It's foundational to KPMG's strategy and our values. And I am so excited for all of you to undertake this topic as part of our case competition. I'm super excited also because the actual final event date, we'll have a judge from KPMG participating. Her name is Zoe Thompson, and she is a foremost leader on this topic. She serves some of the biggest companies in the world in helping them think through their DEI efforts, and she has some significant leadership positions within KPMG on Accelerate 2025. So this is such a great topic. I'm so excited for all of you. I know that this is something you're doing on top of the rest of your life, your education, your jobs, your social life, but I think you're going to get a lot out of it. So thank you and good luck.
Thank you so much, Christina. Good morning, everybody. My name is Lydia Shireen. I'm a current student in the Masters of Nonprofit Administration cohort that's graduating in May of 2022. Today, I have the honor of introducing Bethany Hartley. She is the Chief Strategy Officer of the South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership. The South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership is a collaboration of economic development partners of 47 smart connected communities in northern Indiana, of northern Indiana and southwest Michigan. I'd like to invite Bethany to share with us some of the DE&I efforts of the South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership.
Good morning. Oh, let's try again. Good morning. There we are. It's so good to see everyone today and to be on this beautiful campus on a beautiful day. We embrace the winter here in the Midwest. I was coming in pretty hot though, and I saw a few people slide off, so I hope they're all doing well. So as mentioned, my name is Bethany Hartley. I serve as the CSO for an organization. We're a little unique in this position in that we are a nonprofit, so we are a 501c6, and we serve, as you mentioned, 47 smart connected communities across 2 states. And our region includes Elkhart, St. Joe, Marshall counties in Indiana, and Berrien and Cass in Michigan. And so we have a unique perspective, as our friend from KPMG was talking about the macro scale of things. We get to focus right here where we live, work, and play. And so we're really looking at how we can commit to this region. And what's so encouraging from a DEI perspective is to have 2 of our employers present here, and they're going to speak as well. But that's what's in it for us, is to get more employers to have more inclusive environments, because we want this to be a welcoming region for everyone. And so our work is really behind the scenes, encouraging that behavior. And when I say encouraging, I don't mean rah, rah. I mean, let's talk about strategies. Let's talk about plans. What are your goals to be more inclusive, and how can we support that? And so these activities, like doing this today with all of you, we're also working with the, I might screw this up, the Masters of Science in Data Analytics Capstone Project. Okay, looks good, all right. We're working with a great team over there to help us on our data, because we know stories are what stick, but we've got to back it all up with data, especially in the DEI environment. We've got to prove what we all know intrinsically. And so we're working with that team to get more data for us, looking at the census data, because our whole goal with the DEI committee, which is what Joan is on and Shelley's on, we have a couple members here, is to eliminate the racial wealth divide in the South Bend Elkhart region, to put it shortly. We look at benchmark communities from across the country, and we're falling short. And so we need to know why is that, and how do we fix it? And so we're really looking at it through an access lens. So it's access to information, opportunities, and connections. We know if those barriers are removed, that more wonderful things will happen here right in this region. And so one of the programs that we're really proud of that we stood up a couple years back is called Hustle SBE. It is specific for women and minority-owned businesses. We've had 35 graduates, again, from this region go through that program, and they've all received access to capital and access to associations, because we know as well that business ownership is one of the most sustainable ways to generational wealth. And so we're doubling down on entrepreneurship for minority individuals. We also are looking at career pathways. So how are companies being transparent about their pathways to success? If you're starting at an entry-level position, what does that growth path look like for you? What are the opportunities? I know Firstsource has some great training opportunities with Ivy Tech. What are those opportunities within your company to support you and your career development? And how are they accessible to all? And so those are just a few of the ways we're engaging. We're also rolling out some digital tools for our regional employers so they can be better equipped, because we found in this region there are a lot of founding DEI directors. And so the network of support isn't quite there as it might be in a metro area, a larger area. So we're really looking at what is applicable to this region and to the employers that we have here in this region. So I'm so excited to be a part of this and to learn alongside all of you, and to be a resource. So if there are ever any questions, if you want to come off campus, we've got a great office on the Studebaker campus. And anybody in this room is welcome to come and visit us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bethany, and good morning, everyone. My name is Ahri Patel. I am a master's student in our business analytics program. Today is my great honor to introduce Brett Beasley, Associate Director at Deloitte. Here at Notre Dame, we are so appreciative of Brett and the Deloitte's team time and effort with the Notre Dame DE&I Center for Notre Dame and Deloitte DE&I Center for Ethical Leadership, which seeks to connect innovative academic research with best practices and insights from industry to help form and advance ethical leadership. Please join me in welcoming Brett in this conversation about the Deloitte Center for Ethical Leadership and DE&I.
All right, good morning. Thank you, Ahri. I got that right? Yes. Okay, thank you so much for that introduction. Thanks for having us. We're really excited to be here. It's exciting to see some of my students from last semester. So good to join back with you in this capacity. And it's especially exciting to see all of these partnerships, because we know in the Center for Ethical Leadership here on campus that these types of partnerships, partnering across different institutions of society, breaking down silos, really creates the conditions that are necessary for what we would think of as a new style of leadership. Over the last couple of years, it's sort of come home for us, that Albert Einstein quote, maybe you know the one I'm talking about, that no problem can be solved with the same level of thinking that created it. Well, we really recognize that the problems of the 21st century cannot be solved with the kind of leadership that created them. So we recognize the need for a new kind of leadership when it comes to some of the biggest issues facing our world, where business is looked to increasingly to play a role. So things like climate change, increasing inequality, things like jobs and automation, things like fake news and our information ecosystem. All of those problems, they can't be solved with the model of leadership that created them. So you probably know what I'm talking about if I talk about that old model of leadership, top-down, command and control style leadership. That's all about taking power and giving your perspective to other people. We think it needs to be the opposite, that you need to give power away, and that you need to take the perspective of the people that you're working with and partnering with. So we need those new kind of leaders that are going to build bridges and build partnerships. We heard yesterday, if anyone was able to watch, we had an event with Paul Pullman, that used to be the CEO of Unilever, and Sonda Ojiambo, who is the CEO of the UN Global Compact. And one thing they emphasized about all of these problems, the biggest problems facing our world today, they said if you look at these problems, it actually turns out that we have the technology we need, for the most part, to solve those problems. And it turns out we actually even have the resources we need to solve most of those problems. And people are concerned enough that they want to solve these problems. And we even have the science to give us a good diagnosis of what the problems are. So what are we lacking? We're essentially lacking the leaders who are going to actually unite people, that are going to be able to reach across all the lines that divide us and get people partnering together to create solutions. So we definitely agree in the Center for Ethical Leadership with that, with what Sanda Ojiambo and Paul Pullman said, with a little caveat, because I would say we do have those leaders. We believe you are those leaders. And that's why we're here. That's our challenge to you, is to be those leaders, and that's what we want to help support as we partner with you throughout this case competition. So thanks so much for having us. We're really delighted to be on board.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Suyash Gupta. I'm a student of science in the business analytics program here. I'm here to introduce Dan Lifford, Senior Vice President, Human Resources, Firstsource Bank. Firstsource Bank was founded in 1863 in South Bend, Indiana. Firstsource is the largest locally controlled financial institution headquartered in the northern Indiana, Southwest, and Michigan area. I would now like to invite Dan Lifford to the podium to speak a little bit about the DI efforts of Firstsource.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, and I had such a warm welcome when I arrived. It's sometimes interesting to stop and consider all your remarks for what your experience was, but I'll tell you, when I arrived, I was actually trying to operate the ticketing system to get my pass to put in my car, and the buttons had frozen on it. And so getting a little impatient, I kind of put a little force on the button that was the okay, hoping that I would free it up. And the alarm went off. So I was that close away from being handcuffed by campus security and being hauled off. So I'm actually very thankful to be here. But the most important thing that happened was when I arrived, I came in and I was greeted by Joan. And because I'd spent some time working with the machine, literally I had a hand that was about to fall off. It was that cold. And when she greeted me, she held my hand, and she held it for a few seconds to warm it up. And sometimes I just think the experiences we have in life are the best way to sum up practically what we should be doing, especially with our diversity initiatives. She spent time there just to warm my hand up. And it was probably one of the most comfortable things I'd ever felt in my life. She'd never met me before. I'd never met her before. And I thought, what a neat way to make a connection. So I appreciate that as a starting point. I'm thrilled to be with you. I'm thrilled to hear the ideas. I'm thrilled to hear the case competition. All of this, to me, is extremely exciting. Anytime we can bring together great ideas, great relationships, in kind of a family setting, and think about how do we improve the future, there's nothing but good that's going to come from that. And so I just want to share a few things with you that Firstsource is doing that we're very excited about. And if you go back to 2020, what happened in 2020 was in some ways some scary things and some tragic things that happened. But I think it caused us to open our eyes a little bit more and our hearts a little bit more to what is needed and what needs to be done. And with that, I felt like it's always neat to see kind of the unconquerable human spirit come out in tragedy and to see what can then happen. And for me, it was so impressive to see the momentum that picked up from 2020. Sadly enough, some tragic things had to happen, but the momentum that took off is really, really inspiring, especially to me. And so at Firstsource, we actually have been working for a number of years on diversity and trying to improve diversity, equity, inclusion, and trying to implement things that will make very practical change. But the momentum seemed to really shift in a very positive way following 2020. And one of the first things that we wanted to do was to really set the stage for letting people know it's okay to have some conversations. And, you know, after 2020, I think it put everybody a little bit in an uncomfortable situation. And what can we say and what can't we say? And so we felt like at Firstsource, because of our care for people, because of the way the bank really focuses on people and listens to people, we didn't necessarily have to teach anybody how to talk to anybody and how to show care, but we wanted to invite them to really understand how can you start to have a conversation that's a productive conversation around diversity. And so we actually set out to do an unconscious bias training to help people see exactly what types of barriers might exist in their own life that prevent them from coming to the table and having a real conversation. The cool thing about this was the leadership took the first step and they did an online training. There was a virtual training. But the most important piece was then they came together in an interpersonal conversation, a very close leadership conversation around diversity, where they were all exploring in a very fun and open way their own biases and helping to break down maybe some barriers that might naturally exist. And then following that, they began to share, and actually the sharing continued in a very organic way following that. So it's an exciting thing to see because that then triggered into all of our management team following suit and doing the same thing, and then all of our colleagues going through the very same training experience. And from that, there's been some even more fun conversations that have come out, and as we've heard in the hallway, people starting to feel like it's okay to have these conversations. So that's kind of number one. Number two is practically what we wanted to do is really take a different approach on how do we hire and find great diverse talent. And if you think about the years of affirmative action plans and things that we've all tried to do, our feeling was we'd had a good experience with hiring diversity. In fact, with our CSRs, we call them customer service representatives in all of our branches, we hire quite a few of them every year. And so we're able to hire a lot of diversity on a regular basis. But those are also kind of the entry-level position that they will come and they'll go. And so you hire the diversity and then the diversity leaves. And it's not just the diversity, a lot of people leave. With that, though, we wanted to really think about how do you get diversity up to the next level. And so we put some very aggressive goals on trying to hire more diversity into our exempt and professional level groups. And then really put in place a development plan immediately to help push their development forward. We thought practically locking arms on this specific goal would start to make a big difference on our diversity efforts. And I'm just excited, this is what thrills me, but in 2020, when we were working on diversity, 10%, I'm going to share just openly a number, because one of the things that we've all kind of benefited by at Firstsource is being real, in that we're excited about what we've done and what our experience is, but we know we're not perfect and we know we have a lot to improve. And so in 2020, when we hired diversity at the exempt level, when we hired and promoted, it was 10% of the population was diverse in that exempt level. As we pushed our goals and really started to partner closely with the business, and we have some fantastic business leaders that drove this, but as we started to partner with them and set even more aggressive goals, in 2021, we more than doubled the number of exempt diverse hires and promotions. And so practically, when someone complains and says, well, there's not enough diversity, there's not enough growth or whatever, we're able to say, we push the needle in a way that's never been pushed before. And so it's those little practical steps, I think, that have made all the difference in our own growth plan. And there's a whole laundry list of other things I can share, but just for the sake of time, there's one thing I just would love to end on, a great quote maybe to leave you with. I have, over time, my feelings towards Martin Luther King Jr. have grown in terms of what his contribution was. And it's probably my maturity over time, even though my colleagues at Firstsource would say it's not your maturity. But as he has really shared some very neat things, some of his quotes are so impressive to me. And I just leave this with you in relationship to the case competition. Here's one of my favorites. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. And I love that we can start with just a warm holding of hands and crawl if we have to, but let's keep moving forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan. That was a great quote that you made. Hello, everyone. My name is Kojo Baneni. I'm a Master of Science in Management candidate here at Notre Dame. Today, I'll be introducing Becky Beckham. She is the Principal and Director of Marketing at Gibson Insurance. So for you that are not familiar with Gibson, they're an independent insurance broker founded here in Plymouth, Indiana, nearly 100 years ago. They serve both local and national clients from 5 Midwestern and Southwestern offices. I had the opportunity to talk to Becky briefly before the program started, and I just want to thank her for her continuous efforts in the DI space, and then welcome her to the stand right now so that she can tell you a little bit more.
Thank you for that kind introduction. Once again, Becky Beckman, I'm a principal and director of marketing with Gibson Insurance. So we're a local insurance broker, around 100 years old here. Originally got our start down the street in Plymouth, Indiana. Now we have office locations in South Bend, Indy, Fort Wayne, Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, and then recently we've expanded to the West Coast out in Phoenix, Arizona. So, and by independent and employee-owned insurance broker, it means that the nice thing about Gibson is that we can act quickly, and we have the freedom to work with our clients on advising them on insurance policies. So we handle both health insurance, health benefit plans, and then also any business insurance needs. Just a little bit about Gibson. And on a very basic level, from a small start and as a Midwestern company, for us, diversity was much more than kind of gender, ethnicity, age. We also wanted to intentionally build teams from ground up that were diverse in experience, diverse in thinking styles, diverse in skill sets. Yet, as we decided to build those teams, we realized there was a very apparent gap in the insurance industry. So Gibson pledged, initially starting in 2020 and through this year, Gibson pledged an initial commitment to diversifying the insurance industry. So we started with a very basic endowed scholarship. We're working with the Indiana State University and a couple other universities throughout the country that have specific insurance programs. And with Indiana State, we realized that especially in the Midwest, the industry is not very diverse in all aspects. So in our thoughts, from a Gibson perspective, by helping grow the pie, we won't be just solving for Gibson. The goal would be that we're solving for a much more diversification in the industry as a whole. So beginning in the 2021-22 academic school year, our first step is we've endowed 2 scholarships with Indiana State University supporting minority and female students specifically, and to get them through the insurance and risk management program. So we're really excited to have those first 2 students currently at Indiana State University going through the endowed scholarship program. By raising awareness of insurance as a career, as an opportunity, and all the different things available in the industry, the scholarships will assist in attracting talented students to the and diversifying the community that we live in here. So I'm just really proud and humbled to be a part of this experience with you guys, and to stand here today as a small regional insurance brokerage that has really big ideas and really big plans and strategies to diversifying the insurance industry in the future. So thank you for having us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Hi, everyone. My name's Tyler. I'm also a student in the Master's of Science in Management program. It's my honor to introduce Anthony Phillips, the Deputy Chief and Executive Director of External Equity with the state of Indiana. So the Office of Chief Equity and Inclusion and Opportunity, their mission is to provide guidance and support to the state of Indiana agencies in order to normalize and operationalize equity, inclusion, and opportunity across all aspects of state workforce engagement and state services. I think I speak for all of us when I say we're very excited to hear about the case, so I'll hand it over to Anthony to tell us a little bit more about it.
Good morning, Notre Dame team and students. On behalf of the state of Indiana and the Office of the Chief Equity and Inclusion and Opportunity Officer, It is my great pleasure to be present at this event to help officially kick off the Mendoza College of Business, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Grow the Good in Business case competition. I would like to start with a few points of gratitude. First, I would like to thank Governor Eric Holcomb. In 2020, America found itself in a state of unrest in the fallout of the murder of George Floyd at the hands, or more accurately, the knee of the Minneapolis, Minnesota Police Department. The country called our politicians to action. Indiana called our politicians to action. In August of 2020, Governor Holcomb heeded that call, vowing to make equity a state-level initiative, and then following through on that promise by creating a cabinet-level office, the Office of the Chief Equity, Inclusion, and Opportunity Officer. As a result, my next thank you goes out to Chief Officer Kara Herring, who was also called to action when she was asked to assume the role of Indiana's first Chief Equity, Inclusion, and Opportunity Officer. Many of you already know Kara. She has ties to your city as a South Bend native, to your community as an assistant pastor in her family's church, Faith Alive Ministries, and to your university as the former Director of Public Affairs in the Office of Public Affairs and Communications. The CEIOO role is one that comes with great responsibility, even greater scrutiny, but also great possibility for all Hoosiers. Despite having a commute between South Bend and Indianapolis multiple times per week, splitting her time between her duty to her family and her duty to the state, despite the various misquotes, misrepresentations, misunderstandings, and direct legislative attacks on the office, despite all of that, Chief Officer Herring shows up with her best self every day to continue to do this work that is so critical, not just for the state of Indiana, but for the world. So once more, thank you to Chief Officer Kara Herring. I'll also extend a quick thank you to Joan, Kristen, Jessica, and the rest of the Case Competition Committee for prioritizing this DEI work and asking our future leaders to address this current issue today. Thank you to the speakers that presented before me with some truly thoughtful and inspiring messages. Thank you to Tyler Dixon for introducing me. And most importantly, thank you to you, the students, for the difficult but important work you are about to engage in. You have a great opportunity here to put forth a vision and a plan for equity that can make an amazing difference in the lives of your friends, families, and fellow Hoosiers. With introductions and acknowledgements out of the way, I'm excited to introduce and read through the case. So the problem, which we've talked about a bit, but the problem as we define it is that the racial wealth gap is defined as the difference in wealth resulting from several economic factors associated with well-being between different racial or ethnic groups within a population. The wealth gap can be observed throughout the United States. Indiana is no exception. Centuries of discrimination and exploitation have led to significant wealth disparity by race in America. For example, the median white household has a net worth 10 times that of the median Black household. If Black households held a share of national wealth in proportion to their share of the US population, it would amount to 12.68 trillion in household wealth, rather than the actual sum of 2.54 trillion. The total racial wealth gap, therefore, is estimated to be 10.14 trillion. There is vibrant and intriguing conversation in America today about the diversification of the C-suite and boardrooms, student loan forgiveness, and other workforce and expenditure-based approaches to closing the racial wealth gap. Many believe these investments are a moral imperative and a pressing economic necessity. Nonetheless, any initiative to close the racial wealth gap must first wrestle with the reality of wealth concentration in modern America. The 400 richest American billionaires have more total wealth than all 10 million Black American households combined. Black households have about 3% of all household wealth, while the 400 wealthiest billionaires have 3.5% of all household wealth in the United States. Because wealth in the United States is so highly concentrated and because the wealthiest Americans are almost exclusively white, the racial wealth gap is also concentrated among the wealthiest families. Indeed, if the wealth gap were completely eradicated for all but the richest 10% of households, the total racial gap will still be more than $8 trillion, which is 80% of the total wealth gap that exists today. Any plan to eradicate the total racial wealth gap requires, in addition to transformative national investment in more equitable households and communities, a wide-ranging legislative agenda and examination of major tax reform. The solution is not simple. If it were, this dilemma would have been solved long ago. Now is the time to explore solutions to the racial wealth gap with greater intentionality. The task, therefore, for this hypothetical case study, your objective is to devise a way to reduce the wealth gap for Hoosiers, Indiana residents are known. And you're assigned Indiana region, of which we've given 3. We've got North, Central, South, through a specific set of strategy recommendations. While solutions to the wealth gap have historically focused on policy actions, your challenge is to create strategy that utilizes your business acumen instead. Participants are encouraged to think innovatively about the use of anchor institutions, including businesses, state and local government offices, nonprofits, and philanthropic groups within the assigned region. Additionally, participants should consider the importance of the social determinants of health of the citizens within each region and how socioeconomic factors can improve or reduce access to better social determinants of health and overall quality of life. A couple of notes. While wealth is typically thought of as income and assets, there are a number of factors that play a key role in the economic well-being of different groups. Factors like education, debt, business ownership, geographical location, and many others impact the wealth gap. Within the hypothetical case study, there are some examples of data that might prove useful to your work. The data and data sources provided are not required to be used. They are merely examples to assist in the formulation of your strategy. Participants are encouraged to utilize the resources provided in addition to data sources acquired through supplementary research. We have some key definitions, which based on my difficulties to get on this call, I won't go through. I will just read what they are, and you guys can go through the definitions when you review the case. So we have definitions for what we call an anchor institution. Corporate social responsibility, this one's important. Quality of life, racial wealth gap, social determinants of health, and what each of those are. Final thoughts. As you embark on this journey of proposing solutions to address the wealth gap in Indiana, explore what has been done in other states and potentially other countries. The approach to tackling this issue will come in many forms. Advocacy, law and policy, corporate investments, education, and workforce transformation are just several of many examples. An evidence-based approach which articulates outcomes based on data is important. However, there is incredible value in thinking big and outside of the box. You have an opportunity to use your business degree for a better future for all. So even though this is a hypothetical case study, the issues presented are real. The state of Indiana is watching with great anticipation to see what a group of so many brilliant minds can come up with to address the issues presented. A famous quote by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which Dan, you and I both are on the same page here, except different quotes, reads, quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly," end quote. Indiana is at its strongest when there is equitable access and outcomes for all of its citizens. Where Martin Luther King says injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, I would argue that the opposite is also true. Justice anywhere is a threat to injustice anywhere. Let's work to threaten injustice together. Good luck, students. May God continue to bless you, and may He continue to bless the state of Indiana.
Thank you, Anthony. We are looking for students to propose innovative business solutions to closing the wealth gap in the state of Indiana. All right, so we are looking for you, specialized master's students, to register your team of 2 to 4 students by tonight, right? So today is the deadline for that. Each team will be assigned a region within the state of Indiana, and you'll be given access to data that relates to that region in order to develop your innovative business solution, right? And I want to emphasize that we are really focusing on using your business acumen here. Typically, we see a lot of policy action around income inequality, and here, given what we are good at and what we are learning here in Mendoza, we're looking to do something different. So we will release case materials and your region assignments on Monday. And what we would expect from you by that deadline of March 4th, which is our deadline for our round 1 submission, is a 3 to 5 page strategy document. That is your final deliverable for round 1. And you'll feel free to use the data to create an appendix if you would like as well. At that point, we have a wonderful committee of judges from the Notre Dame community who will be reading each submission twice using a rubric. And from there, we will identify the top 10 teams and announce those on March 18th. Okay. Now, you may wonder, what resources do we have access to in order to be able to prepare for the best round one submission? So we are offering 3 workshops and one-on-one coaching sessions from our strategic partner, the Fanning Center for Business Communication. So these workshops essentially will take place every Thursday starting February 10th at 5 p.m. in Mendoza. And we will cover various issues that we think are closely related to the case. First workshop on inclusive ethical leadership. Second workshop is going to be on social justice, poverty, and the wealth gap. And then the third, from analysis to pitch, 5 tips for communicating with data. Right, these are optional, but we encourage you to take advantage of your access to these resources in order to make that best round one submission, right? And then at any time, feel free to set up a one-on-one coaching appointment to have your case reviewed with the Fanning Center for Business Communication. Other key dates. So we will be releasing the top 10 teams, as I mentioned. We then have a round 2 submission for those top 10 teams. The final deliverable there will be more of a 10 to 12 slide deck presentation regarding your innovative business solution. On March 29th, we'll release information on the top 3 finalists. We will help those finalists prepare with a pitch practice and dinner, because at that final round and closing ceremony on April 1st, our top 3 finalists will be making a presentation to a wonderful panel of judges for our top 3 prizes, right? And we'll look forward to announcing the judges for that closing ceremony in coming weeks. Right, and of course, what is at stake? Well, there's a lot at stake, as all of our presenters have suggested in their remarks, more than just the prizes. But of course, here we've got our first team winning $7,000, second place $4,000, third place $2,000, and then everyone from the top 10 teams will win money, so the remainder of those top 10 teams will earn $1,000. So yeah, at this point, let's go ahead and open up the floor to any questions that students might have about the case so far. Yes. Have you used this for the Zoom, please?
So within the prompt, and it's been kind of mentioned how policy initiatives have been recommended in the past, but because we're business school, we're going to focus instead on business solutions. Can you explain a little bit more about what the distinction is, or where you're focused in terms of proposing business solutions as opposed to policy solutions?
So to me, the distinction is more about what actions can businesses take, what investments can they make, and I think our corporate sponsors have already given us examples of that. But thinking more along the lines of, say, the anchor institutions that Anthony mentioned, right? Both for-profit and nonprofit organizations. And that is not to say that those business solutions can't be paired or complemented with policy action. And in fact, if you think that your business solution would be most effective with a combination of different solutions, for sure, we believe that to be innovative, please propose those. But instead of proposing, say, a tax reform necessarily, or like a change in inheritance tax, for example, or some sort of legislation, right? Something not along those lines, or something along those lines in combination with what organizations and businesses can do. That's what we're looking for here. Yes. Good question. Thank you.
Yeah, if I can add to that question.
Sure.
Are you guys able to hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But the definition of corporate social responsibility is really important here. And just to read the first line, it's a self-regulating business model that helps a company be socially accountable to itself, its stakeholders, and the public. That's where I think the business mind comes into play here, because this is not something that needs to be mandated upon a company, but it's really imperative that we allow corporations and companies and businesses and anchor institutions to understand the kind of impact they can have on the area in which they live. So your minds would be coming up with strategies, and some of your minds, I guess, will be coming up with strategies to get certain businesses in certain areas, certain anchor institutions, to work with philanthropic and nonprofit area organizations in their area to impact real change, and kind of estimating what that change could be and how it will affect the wealth gap. So it's less mandate, more optional, but I think that it's imperative that everyone in this country address the topic as if it is a mandate, because it's an ethical mandate.
And I guess I'll also add that if there's any ambiguity, just from a logistical perspective about whether your solution is along this approach, we do have those one-on-one coaches that we mentioned earlier. And then, of course, we have a fantastic group of faculty and staff who are also on committees to help write the case and can serve as consultants as well. So please take advantage of those resources. Great. What other questions do you have? Yes, Martin, we have a question there.
You mentioned that a rubric would be used by the panel of judges for the first round. Will we have access to that rubric?
Absolutely, yeah. So we will be releasing on Monday with your region assignment, which region you've been assigned to, the case that Anthony shared with us. You'll get a data file with the data that Anthony mentioned. You will be given instructions regarding the format of your strategy document, a sample strategy document, and then the rubric that our judging committee will use. Absolutely, yes. And that will all be delivered, by the way, through the same registration portal that you have accessed already.
Are you looking for solutions specific to the race wealth gap or the wealth gap, like just overall?
So the data that we've provided focuses on the racial wealth gap. And so I think we encourage you to think broadly, right? If that's something that is interesting to you and that is where your innovative ideas fall, hopefully it can be applied across many different inequities. But yeah, I would encourage you, given that the data focuses on the racial wealth gap, like that's where you're going to have a lot of resources focused, but feel free to extend that with supplementary research.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so thank you for those questions, all excellent questions. So what we're going to do now is we are going to kind of move into an exciting last portion of this kickoff event where the students will get to interact with our corporate sponsors. So to kind of tell us about how this next part of the event is going to work, I'd like to introduce you to Joan McClendon. She's the advisor to the vice president of UEE here at the University of Notre Dame. And like Professor McManus-Warnell, she has been a tremendous thought leader and partner in the creation of this case competition. And she's going to tell us what's going to happen next.
I think that was the first time I heard my name actually said in public. So thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you to all the committees that have helped out in putting this together. So very excited about what is going on here in Mendoza. We also wanted to thank the sponsors before I go into the next stage. I want to thank the sponsors. It's really not about the money, as Kristen said. It's really about giving our students an opportunity to really dive into some deep issues. And I think it'll be very rewarding for the students as well. So I wanted to leave with this final thought. Everybody has a final thought, right? So I'm going to leave my final thought. Someone here said that we have brilliant students here at the University of Notre Dame, and we know that, right? But at some point in time, you all will compete against brilliant students as well. I heard someone say in an interview that they've met all the criteria, GPA, all the things, but when it came to talking about issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which are hot topics right now in the business industry, they were unable to answer any questions. So I hope that during this time, you will take this time, use it for everything that it's worth, get all the information that you need. Don't make this some kind of just check the box experiment. Be curious,
ask a lot of questions, ask me questions. I'm sure that I could say the sponsors would avail themselves in the exact same way. But get everything that you can out of the experience so that you can grow to the next level, okay? And I hope this also with your fellow colleagues. So what's gonna happen next is that we have different portions of the room and outside the room for folks to sit down with our sponsors. And they're labeled, so feel free to mingle with them. We also, over on the left-hand side where Professor Jessica is, have a screen where KPMG will be interviewing or asking, you can ask questions of them. So is there anything else that I have to remember? Lunch, we'll have a grab lunch, I think it is. Oh, and we have a raffle. So I'm going to turn the mic back over to Kristen Collette-Schmidt.
All right, so as Joan said, we're kind of finishing our formal remarks here and then allowing you for the next 30 minutes to engage with our guest. In addition to adding my thanks to our partners, both on the case as well as our corporate sponsors, I also want to thank our strategic partner, the Fanning Center for Business Communication, for holding those workshops and coaching sessions for our students. I also want to thank the faculty and staff whose passion for DEI really made this event possible. Many of the faculty and staff are in this room right now. Thank you to them. And in particular, I want to thank Carol Elliott, Jessica Stuckey, Martin Johnson, and Wendy Walker for their support today. And of course, let's go ahead and announce the winners of our Grubhub gift cards. We've got $50 gift cards that will allow you and your team to go out and do some serious work on your case now that you know what it's all about. And given our food limitations for another couple of hours on campus, this was the approach to feeding all of you. So I'm going to go ahead and call the winners, and then if you just want to find me before you leave, I can go ahead and get your gift card to you. So our first winner is Suyash. Congratulations. Catherine Bender. Catherine Bender. Connor O'Brien. The team of Bruna, Ryan, and Ryan. Caroline Smith. Lydia. Well, yeah. The Finn group, Michael, Frankie, Elizabeth, and Aaron. Tyler Dixon. Yeah. Ben Bryan. And Shiloh Capone. So congratulations. All right. So, yes. Yes, we have about 25 teams registered right now. Most of those are teams of 4, but some have teams of 2. 25 is another thing that makes my heart swell right now. So keep them coming. If you've not registered, we do have some iPads at the table over here for you to complete your registration. And of course, you have until midnight tonight to do that. All right, go Irish. Go ahead and get started.